been seeing loads of discussions online between South Africans and Black Americans in regards to the Zulu parade in New Orleans. If you're a South African and you're specifically from the Zulu tribe, you have every right to be offended and or upset. If you are Black American and you are from Louisiana and that's your culture, you have every right to defend it. And here's why. The Zulu parade has been happening since 1909, when a group of men created a benevolent organization and they saw a play that depicted the Zulu tribe in Africa. And at that time, hyper-segregation was going on. And the white people in Louisiana said that Black people could no longer participate in Mardi Gras. And so what they did was they created a section or a parade in that Mardi Gras, and they dressed up in that Zulu costume. And they also did blackface, which at the time was like a minstrel show, which depicted Black people as super villainous and super dark and super African. And so what they did was they said they took reclamation in both of those depictions of themselves and said, you know what, we're going to defy what you are telling us as a race we can or cannot participate in and we can't do. So we're going to show up in blackface and we're going to show up as this tribe we learned about and we're going to throw it in your face. And that is the start of that conversation, and the start of that Zulu parade is Black people in Louisiana taking reclamation of something, putting power into it and saying, you know what, you no longer can hold this over my head because I'm proud to be this thing that you think is so dark, so dirty, and so villainous. In the same vein, if you're a South African and you are from the Zulu tribe and you're discovering this parade in 2025, you have no idea about the history, the backstory, or why this is being done. And you've been force-fed this idea your whole life that Americans are ignorant and Americans are dumb. And so you're like, oh, these Americans don't even know what they're doing. It's rude, it's offensive to depict Zulus like this. And for you, that is correct. You have every right to be offended and you have every right to think that this is something that shouldn't be done. But what you can't say, and there's been a lot of sentiment saying, well, Americans always talk about cultural appropriation. I think you do yourself a disservice as somebody from the continent, especially West and South and Central Africa, when you can look at anyone in the diaspora, inclusive of Americans, and say that they're cosplaying and or they're culturally appropriating who I am. Now, South Africa didn't really participate in the slave trade in mass, but they did actually participate in the slave trade some. You will find members of the diaspora who have South African heritage. The lack of education and knowledge goes both ways. In America, we are only taught Americanness. We're taught that we're the center of the world, but Black Americans specifically are already not taught their history in this country, purposely done so. But we have no exposure to Africa. When I was growing up, the only exposure to Africa I had was the Feed the Children campaigns. Africa was a war-torn continent. They depicted Africa like a country and not the biggest landmass in the world. And we were just force-fed and socialized to believe Africa had nothing going on and that you guys were holding on for bare life. The flip side, most Africans or most parts of the diaspora consumed American media because America controlled the media for the last 100 years, and that just happens to be where we're from. Africans aren't taught the intricacies of Black American culture. They're barely taught American culture, but a lot of it is learned via media. But the intricacies of our culture is something that is not exported to the world. There's this overarching Black American identity that's exported. Me, I'm from New York. So Mardi Gras, Louisiana, all that stuff is not my culture, but I'm aware of that culture because I'm Black and I'm from this country. When you look at the history of Mardi Gras is no different than Carnival. And Carnival happens in all the Americas, Brazil, Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, the list goes on. And the premise of Carnival was the day that the slaves could dress up as the slave masters, and or they could participate in aspects of their ancestral culture. They could enjoy themselves, they could laugh, they can dance, but it was mainly about putting on a loud version, a loud, proud version of yourself, and they wouldn't get in trouble for it. This is no different. And I think when we are able to talk to each other and not at each other, I feel like in my brief tenure on this app, there's been so many instances in the diaspora where we don't have enough knowledge about each other's culture to actually formulate an opinion, but we talk loudly at each other. There's a bunch of sentiments on Twitter I saw from South Africans saying, imagine being Black American and not having a culture, not having a clan, not having a language, and not having any food. And that tweet got thousands of likes. And it was so wild to me to say that because you're writing this tweet on Twitter in English. English is not your mother tongue. You were colonized. And in the same vein that you say African Americans have no culture, and that's always the trope that you guys want to do. We have no culture, we have no food, even though you know that's not true because you grew up consuming us and our culture. African Americans are not aware of the plight that South Africans went through, right? We know South Africa is a country that has white people, and why that occurred, most of us we're not taught that. That's not a part of our curriculum. It's not a part of our syllabus. We do not study why South Africa has white people. I learned about that in college, and then I went and did a study abroad in South Africa, and landing in Cape Town, it was the wildest moment of my life. I didn't even feel like I landed in Africa because there was so many white people there. And that was something I had to learn. And so you can't weaponize someone's ignorance against them. The same way I wouldn't weaponize your ignorance because you think you know about African Americans because you consume media, when in fact, you have no idea what Mardi Gras is. You have no idea why the Zulu parade exists. You have no idea why anything exists. And when African Americans are telling you to do your research, you laugh and say, well, I'm Zulu, so you can't tell me to do my research. You have to do your research because while African Americans may not be distinctly Zulu, a lot of us are. A lot of people have South African ancestry, and you can't cosplay and you can't culture appropriate something you are. And that's where it gets kind of murky in the diaspora because everybody is from everywhere in that coast of Africa. I discovered a festival in Cape Town called Klupse Kapse. Sorry, somebody correct me in the comments if I'm saying it wrong. And looking at this video that I'm putting up now that I saw, if I didn't know and read the description, I would think this was Louisiana. I would think you guys are cosplaying Americans, doing marching band, doing Southern Black culture. And that is an ignorant thing for me to say because I'm unaware why this parade exists for you guys in South Africa. And looking at this, it looks like you guys are in America doing Southern American culture. With that being said, there's so much about us in the diaspora that we do not know about each other, and there's so much learning and unlearning to do. I think particularly from members outside of the Americas, there's so much socialization that has been given to you about Americans and about Americans being dumb, Americans having no culture, Americans just having an ego, and that all stems from your consumption of America. And on the flip side, Americans don't care to learn about anywhere else because we live here, which is also a problem. And that feeds into us having an ego and all the things. I think it's beautiful that we're able to discover more about each other on this app every day. What I do wish is that we were able to have conversations with each other and not talk at each other, because talking at each other gets us nowhere. And the diaspora wars are really dumb at this point, especially when we have the internet at our fingertips and we can research anything. It takes 2 seconds to research why the parade is happening. It takes 2 seconds to research about the Zulu people in South Africa and their history. But we live in a world where we don't want to use critical thinking and we don't want to research anymore. Much love to everyone. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend.